Do you think it would be fair to look at recruiting practices of nonprofits at the same time?
Sure. In fact, that's exactly what NACAC does.
That was a setup question.
Well, thank you. Our association was founded, quite frankly, on the establishment of ethical principles. We have something called the Statement of Principles of Good Practice, and all of our members agree to abide by these statements. There are things about process, about marketing, things that you say and don't say, but being true to your word about what you promise to families and students. We're one of the few associations actually monitoring our ethical statements, and if we get complaints about institutions and their practices, we follow up. And quite frankly, if they choose not to abide by those rules, we ask them to leave the association. So we're very serious about the fair and equal treatment of students in the process.
That's great. And so Greg, if I can turn to you in terms of asking how American University handles this. So when you're thinking about putting your materials together for the year in terms of your recruiting materials, what sorts of connections are you trying to make between what you're promising a student and what they're going to get in terms of career services or what they're going to get in terms of a likely job? How do you handle that?
Making the connection so what they see is
so if you come to my school, American University, this is what you're going to get. Our tuition is, and we'll talk about tuition in a moment, but here's our tuition, and no doubt you're going to have some parent at one of the information sessions sometime next week who says, well, this is great, I love the school, but can you tell me exactly what I'm going to get for my $200,000? How would you answer that in terms of what's the connection between now and what job or career you're going to have later?
Sure. I mean, I think when we're talking about college fairs and collateral material, that's just a window into the institution. I don't think any good toss piece, and it's, I think, appropriately named a toss piece, you get it, you learn a little bit more, and then we invite you to explore more. Come to our website, come visit us on campus, have those conversations, allow us to connect you with the individuals who can talk about career services, about academic advising, and that's what we invite. So it's more, I think, a window in, and then it certainly should not be treated as the entire Bible for a school.
Well, but what about it? But what happens if somebody does treat it as the Bible? What happens if somebody does say to you, Greg, that's really interesting, but I'm taking out a lot of loans. What am I going to get specifically? How do you handle that situation?
Well, I would hope at that point of discussion that we're not just looking at a piece of paper. That if we're at the point of decision or contemplation, we've engaged in many dialogues, that we've connected that student to people across campus. We want to make sure that the students are making an informed decision, because we want to be the best fit for the student, but we also want to make sure that they're a right fit for us.
But let's play off in terms of the right fit, in terms of cost.
Okay.
What do you think is an appropriate level of debt that a family and a student can incur? What do you think is reasonable in your mind? And I realize it's different for everybody, but the general rule of thumb, and then perhaps I'll ask you, Joyce, in a moment, but what do you think, Greg, in terms of what's an appropriate level of debt for somebody to have when they come out of American University?
Sure. I mean, American University would be general, actually, in that response, and bring it to the family. We would have informed decisions with them, give them the information, explain what their package looks like, what does that mean, and then really it is up to the family, and as long as they have all the information, they can make an informed decision. So I wouldn't put a dollar figure on it, but rather it's a counseling, and it's going to, as you said, it's going to be different for every family.
Is it under 100,000? 50,000?
Again,
no number.
I wouldn't go with a number.
I would like to back up to something that you questioned Greg about earlier. The value of an education, a post-secondary degree, is priceless.
An investment.
And it's an investment. And if families are deterred in some way by the cost, they haven't done their homework, because there's such a range of educational opportunity in this area. Most community colleges in the surrounding area might on average be about $2,500 for tuition. Most public colleges and universities in the area might be from $7,000 to $9,000. Private institutions, maybe $25,000 as an average. But as they become more expensive, those institutions also have greater financial aid opportunities and not just loans. And so the notion of, should I take out loans to get this degree? The option is, if you don't, what career or job possibilities do you have? So I guess the message or the takeaway from this that I hope families hear If you don't have a post-secondary degree, your opportunity to be in that possibility of making more than a high school graduate, and who knows what's to come in the next 5 to 10 years, because careers are changing, jobs are changing. I would hope that most admissions people will be armed with information about careers and fields and things to look out for. But I don't know any institution, and you have a law degree. The law field is interesting now, and after you go through all those years of study, they've shifted so much in terms of internships and opportunities to clerk. So the landscape is changing, and my message is, get that education and be prepared for that changing landscape.
And I think that's a great message, and I support that message, as you well know. But I guess I'm hearing from a lot of parents who are concerned about tuition, and they're interested in what's going to happen. Is the federal government going to do something about it? Is NACAC going to do something about it? Is American University going to do something about it? Is another university going to do something about it? It seems that there's not a lot of movement on that front, and notwithstanding the argument that says higher education is important, and I agree with you 100%. It's one of the most important things in the world. But still, you know, what happens when somebody comes in and says it's really expensive? How can we contain these costs a little bit more?
There have been efforts underway for the last 5 or 6 years, exploring the cost of education, higher education, including some efforts that I think the American Council on Education also tried to address, and business officers. Colleges cost a lot to be managed, whether it's buildings and grounds or trying to keep up with consumer interests. I can remember some campuses were trying to have gourmet buffets for students and dorms that looked like palatial settings. When that race was sort of ratcheted up and everybody was trying to have a more interesting or attractive program or Nobel Award faculty, probably the best thing that came out of the stock market drop in 2008, people had to regroup and look at what was important. Families need to consider if they need to have that headlining college as their college of choice, but I'd like to make certain they have choice. So the notion about the cost for college, absolutely, the government's looking at it, college university presidents are looking at it, but the bottom line is, as consumers, you have options. And if you can't afford $50,000 for tuition, don't go there.
Right.
And I love, again, what parents started saying, I know my child may not be able to go to their first choice school, but there are 3,000 other options for them to consider, and that's the lesson that I hope we get out of this. We can keep fighting about how much they cost, but some of those kinds of things aren't going to change, and my association has very little to do with how colleges price themselves. But I think it is a challenge to try to stay competitive, have beautiful grounds, have good faculty, and serve all those things that most consumers want to see on a college campus.
And I think it's important as well to not be deterred from applying to a school based on what the perception of the sticker price is, and that's, as we look at American University, we've made a commitment over these last 2 years to fully fund all our Pell eligible students. That's very important to us. Something we very much value is increasing diversity, and particularly socioeconomic diversity. So as students that are watching, families that are watching, you may look at a sticker price for a university and say, I could never afford that. If it's a first choice school for you, it's somewhere that you feel very passionate about, explore it. It may ultimately not work out, but don't put yourself out of the running before you even have a chance. I think that's important.
Great. All right, well, I think we only have a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you about the issue of the consortium in terms of how students in Washington can take courses at other universities. Sure. And Greg, maybe you can address that from an American perspective, and then perhaps Joyce, you can chat about how that works more globally.
Certainly. At American University, if we do not offer the course on our campus, and we offer many foreign languages, but there may be a foreign language we don't offer that Catholic or Georgetown or George Washington may offer, a student can cross-register, and they do pay American University tuition. So that is an opportunity if you come. Also with the library resources, and that's probably where it's most used by students, where they have access, and now books are actually delivered right to our campus. So you don't even have to actually leave your residence hall. They'll come right to you. So there's some real great benefits in being in, I guess, the second largest college town in the country. So.
Good.
I'm pleased to cue the people watching this program The Consortium of Universities of the Washington Metropolitan Area is comprised of 14 institutions, and UDC is one of them, opening up options for students who are graduates of DC high schools. They're able to go to Virginia or Maryland as in-state tuition students, and I think this consortium opens up all kinds of opportunities. Students have no excuse not to explore. I encourage them to go to www.consortium.org, and there's all kinds of information about the 14 institutions. Takes you to their websites. You can find out about admission criteria and deadlines.
Well, terrific, thank you. And then I just wanted to raise one more issue of the cost, because I mean, as you well know, Joyce, I mean, I've been a member of NACAC for I don't even know how many years, before I lost all my hair, for many, many years. And I believe very strongly in the quality of education and the fact that students should have access to quality education. But increasingly, you know, students who see me and viewers are really concerned about these costs. And so I guess what I'd like to do is maybe if we can leave some of our viewers with a positive message in terms of, you know, if there's a sacrifice, there's going to be a slight sacrifice, but what are you getting at the end of the rainbow?
At the start of the rainbow, fill out the FAFSA. And online, it gives you each step to fill it out, and at the end of it, you've made an investment in your life.
Yes.
Great.
That's the bottom line.
It's a life investment.
Life investment.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you both very much. Joyce, thank you very much for coming here. Greg, thank you very much for coming here.
Steve.
This has been very helpful to our viewers. And so I would just like to say thank you to everybody for watching today. If you would like additional information about the National Association for College Admission Counseling or American University, please visit their websites at nacacnet.org or american.edu. Thank you again for watching. We will continue to bring you quality admissions discussions and quality discussions generally about education issues and about matters that are important in today's college and university world. Please join me again for another edition of Higher Education Today. And I'm Steven Roy Goodman, and you've been watching Higher Education Today.